My name is Marlo Brennan, but everyone calls me Marley. I'm 62 years old, and I need to tell you about the most terrifying discovery I've ever made in my own home. For 35 years, I trusted my husband Landon completely. We built a life together in our modest house in Tacoma, Washington. I spent 30 years as a librarian at the public library downtown, retiring just last year. Landon worked as an insurance adjuster until his retirement 3 years ago. We were supposed to be enjoying our golden years together, traveling, gardening, spending time with friends. But something changed about 6 months ago. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, just small things that felt off. Landon started acting differently when I was around. He'd close his laptop quickly when I entered the room. He'd take phone calls outside, claiming the reception was better in the backyard. He started suggesting I visit my sister Verity more often, even though she lives 4 hours away in Portland. The suggestions felt pushy, almost desperate. I started paying closer attention to these strange behaviors. Landon would encourage me to go shopping, to join a book club, to take day trips anywhere that would get me out of the house for several hours. At first, I thought maybe he wanted alone time, which seemed reasonable for a retired couple, adjusting to being home together constantly. But then I noticed things were different in our house when I returned from errands. Small things, the living room blinds would be adjusted differently. A chair in the kitchen would be moved slightly. The thermostat would be set to a different temperature than I'd left it. Our bedroom door, which I always left open, would be closed. These weren't things Landon would normally change. He was a creature of habit, just like me. One afternoon, I came home early from the grocery store because I'd forgotten my wallet. Landon seemed genuinely startled to see me. His face went pale, and he stammered something about taking a nap. But he was fully dressed in outdoor clothes, and he was sweating despite the cool house. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Landon, listening to him breathe, wondering what was happening in my own home. The man I'd spent more than 3 decades with suddenly felt like a stranger. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Maybe retirement was making me overthink everything. Maybe I just had too much time on my hands. But my instincts kept screaming that something was very wrong. The next morning, Landon brought up my sister again during breakfast. He was pouring my coffee when he casually mentioned that Verity had been complaining about being lonely lately. This was odd because Verity had just started dating someone new and had told me how happy she was. Landon suggested I should spend a long weekend with her, maybe leave on Thursday and come back Monday. He was very specific about the timing. I watched him carefully as he spoke. His hands shook slightly as he set down the coffee pot. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I called Verity that afternoon while Landon was at the hardware store. I told her about Landon's strange behavior and his sudden insistence that I visit her. Verity listened quietly, then said something that chilled me to the bone. She told me that Landon had called her 2 weeks earlier, asking about her schedule and whether she'd be available for a visit from me soon. He'd never done anything like that before. Verity suggested I pretend to plan the trip, but actually stay close to home to see what Landon was really doing. She offered to cover for me if he called her. I felt sick to my stomach. What could my husband possibly be hiding that required getting me out of the house for 4 entire days? That evening, I told Landon I'd love to visit Verity. I watched his face light up with relief, and it broke my heart. I told him I'd leave Thursday morning and return Monday afternoon. He actually hugged me, saying how good it would be for me to spend quality time with my sister. I spent the next few days planning carefully. I needed somewhere to stay that was close enough to watch the house, but far enough that Landon wouldn't spot me. I thought about our neighbor Ashby, an older woman who lived 3 houses down on the opposite side of the street. She'd been widowed 5 years ago, and we'd become friends over the years. I trusted her completely. On Wednesday afternoon, I walked to Ashby's house and told her everything. She listened with growing concern, then immediately offered to help. Her guest room had a window with a partial view of our house. She also suggested we set up cameras inside my home before I left for Portland. Ashby had security cameras from when her late husband worried about break-ins. She still had 2 small ones we could hide. That night, while Landon slept, I lay awake planning where to place the cameras. I needed to see what he was doing, who he might be bringing into our home, and why he needed me gone so desperately. Thursday morning arrived. I packed my suitcase with shaking hands, playing the role of excited sister going to visit family. Landon made me breakfast, chatting cheerfully about how I should relax and enjoy myself. He carried my suitcase to the car and kissed me goodbye. As I backed out of the driveway, I watched him wave from the porch. He looked happier than he'd been in months. I drove around the corner and parked on a side street. I'd already given Ashby my house key the night before. The plan was simple. She would enter through the back door in 30 minutes and place the 2 cameras while Landon took his usual morning shower. One camera would go in the living room, hidden in the bookshelf behind a photo frame. The other would go in our bedroom, tucked behind the alarm clock on the dresser. Both had motion sensors and would record directly to a cloud account Ashby had set up on her computer. I sat in my car, my heart pounding, watching the minutes tick by on my phone. After 45 minutes, Ashby called. Her voice was steady but serious. She'd successfully placed both cameras without being detected. Landon had been in the shower the entire time, and she'd slipped in and out through the back door without any problems. I drove to Ashby's house and parked in her garage so Landon wouldn't see my car if he happened to drive by. Inside her cozy living room, we set up her laptop on the coffee table. The camera feeds were clear. I could see our empty living room and bedroom. Everything looked normal, peaceful. Exactly as I'd left it. Ashby made tea while we waited. She sat beside me on the couch, patting my hand occasionally. Neither of us spoke much. We just watched those camera feeds, waiting for something to happen. Around 11 o'clock, Landon appeared on the bedroom camera. He was on his phone, pacing back and forth. He looked excited, almost giddy. He kept checking his watch. At 11:30, Landon left the bedroom and appeared on the living room camera. He was straightening pillows, adjusting the blinds, cleaning the already clean coffee table. He was preparing for someone. My stomach twisted into knots. Was he having an affair? After 35 years of marriage, had he found someone else? I felt Ashby's hand squeeze mine as we watched. At exactly noon, the doorbell rang on the camera feed. Landon practically ran to answer it. When he opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't another woman, it was a man, probably in his 40s, wearing casual clothes and carrying a large black bag. Landon shook his hand enthusiastically and invited him inside. They moved to the living room. Sitting on the couch, the man opened his black bag and started pulling out papers, spreading them across our coffee table. I leaned closer to the laptop screen, trying to see what the documents were. The conversation between Landon and this stranger went on for over an hour. I couldn't hear what they were saying because the cameras didn't have audio, but their body language told me plenty. Landon was animated, gesturing excitedly, pointing at various papers. The stranger took notes, nodding frequently. At one point, Landon got up and brought back our lockbox from the bedroom closet. I watched in disbelief as he opened it on the coffee table. That lockbox contained our important documents, including titles, insurance policies, and financial statements. He showed several papers to the stranger, who photographed them with his phone. Ashby gasped beside me. This wasn't an affair. This was something financial, something that required access to our private documents, something Landon clearly didn't want me to know about. After the stranger left, Landon carefully returned everything to the lockbox and put it back in the closet. Then he poured himself a drink, something he rarely did before dinner, and sat on the couch looking satisfied. I spent Thursday night in Ashby's guest room, barely sleeping. My mind raced with possibilities. What kind of financial dealings would require such secrecy? Why would Landon hide this from me? We'd always handled money together, made major decisions as a team. Friday morning, I called Verity to update her. She was furious on my behalf and suggested I call a lawyer before confronting Landon. But I needed more information first. I needed to understand the full scope of whatever Landon was hiding. Around 10 o'clock Friday morning, the stranger returned. This time, he brought another person with him, a woman in her 30s carrying a briefcase. They settled in the living room again, and Landon brought out the lockbox once more. The 3 of them went through documents methodically. The woman took photographs of nearly everything in the lockbox. At one point, Landon signed several papers, while both visitors witnessed his signature. Whatever this was, it was official and legal. My hands trembled as I watched my husband of 35 years conducting secret business in our living room. After the visitors left Friday afternoon, I watched Landon make a phone call. He was smiling, laughing even, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. He poured another drink and toasted the empty room. That's when I knew this wasn't just about money. This was something Landon believed was a victory. Something he was celebrating. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to know what was in those documents. Saturday morning, while Landon was in the shower, I had Ashby drive me to the house. I used my key to enter quietly through the back door. My heart hammered in my chest as I crept to our bedroom closet. I found the lockbox exactly where Landon had returned it. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. Legal papers, property assessments, and financial statements. My blood ran cold as I read through them. Landon was in the process of selling our house without my knowledge. The house we'd bought together 30 years ago, the house in both our names. But it was worse than just selling the house. The documents showed Landon had already forged my signature on preliminary paperwork. He'd hired the strangers to help him commit fraud, to steal my half of our home equity. There were also papers regarding our retirement accounts. He'd been working with a financial advisor to restructure everything, moving money into accounts with only his name. I photographed every document with my phone, my hands shaking so badly I had to retake several pictures. I found an envelope addressed to a lawyer I'd never heard of. Inside was a draft of divorce papers, dated for filing in 3 weeks. Landon was planning to divorce me after stealing our assets, leaving me with nothing. I carefully returned everything to the lockbox exactly as I'd found it. Ashby was waiting in the car around the corner. When I got in, I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. 35 years of marriage. And this is what it had come to. Calculated theft and betrayal. Back at Ashby's house, I spread all the photographs of documents across her dining room table. I called Verity, and she drove up immediately, arriving by Saturday evening. Together, we went through everything. The house sale was scheduled to close in 2 weeks. Landon had found a buyer willing to make a quick cash purchase. The forged signatures were convincing, because Landon had traced my real signature from other documents. He'd planned to tell me afterward that he'd made an executive decision for our financial future, presenting it as something already done that I'd just have to accept. The divorce papers revealed his strategy. He would file after the house sale completed, claiming irreconcilable differences. By then, the money would be moved into offshore accounts I couldn't easily access. He'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Verity held my hand as we read through his betrayal. Document by document, Ashby made endless cups of tea that I couldn't drink. I felt numb, hollowed out. How could I have lived with someone for 35 years and not known they were capable of this? Sunday morning, I called a lawyer. His name was recommended by Ashby, someone her late husband had used for estate planning. His name was Gerald Winters, and he agreed to meet me at his office immediately despite it being the weekend. I brought all the photographs of documents. Gerald studied them carefully, his expression growing darker by the minute. He explained that what Landon was attempting was fraud, forgery, and financial elder abuse. The penalties were severe, potentially including prison time. Gerald said I had 2 options. I could confront Landon directly and try to stop the sale, or I could let it proceed far enough to give law enforcement solid evidence of his criminal intent, then involve the police. The second option was riskier, but would ensure Landon faced serious legal consequences. If I just stopped the house sale, he might try again later or find other ways to steal from me. I thought about those camera feeds, watching my husband celebrate his scheme. I thought about 35 years of trust being weaponized against me. I decided to contact the police. Gerald helped me prepare everything. Monday morning, I was supposed to return home from visiting Verity. Instead, I went to the Tacoma Police Department with Gerald beside me. We met with Detective Hargrove from the Financial Crimes Unit. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I showed her everything, the camera footage, the photographs of documents, the evidence of forged signatures. Detective Hargrove listened carefully, asking detailed questions about the timeline and Landon's behavior. She explained that financial elder abuse against a spouse was taken very seriously in Washington state. She wanted to catch Landon in the act, with enough evidence that he couldn't claim it was a misunderstanding. The house sale was scheduled to close Friday. Detective Hargrove suggested we let Landon think everything was proceeding as planned. Meanwhile, she would coordinate with the title company and the real estate attorney to freeze the transaction at the last moment. When Landon showed up to sign the final papers, police would be waiting. Monday afternoon, I drove home right on schedule. I pulled into the driveway at exactly the time I'd told Landon to expect me. He came out to greet me, all smiles and hugs, asking about my trip with Verity. I played along, telling made-up stories about dinners and shopping trips. Inside, I felt like I was acting in a terrible play. Landon made dinner while I unpacked. He chatted about his quiet weekend, claiming he'd mostly watched television and worked in the garden. He was such a convincing liar. I wondered how many other times he'd lied to me over the years. That night, lying in bed beside him, I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in surreal normalcy. Landon was attentive and sweet, probably feeling confident his plan was succeeding. I caught him checking his phone constantly, likely communicating with his real estate contacts. Thursday night, he told me he had an appointment Friday morning and would be gone for a few hours. He said it was a routine checkup with his doctor. Friday morning, I watched Landon dress in nice clothes for his doctor's appointment. He kissed me goodbye and drove away in his car. I waited 15 minutes, then followed the plan Detective Hargrove had given me. I drove to the title company office downtown, parking where I could watch the entrance. Detective Hargrove and two other officers were already there, waiting in unmarked cars. At 10 o'clock, Landon arrived. He walked into the building carrying a folder, looking pleased with himself. I felt sick watching him. Inside that building, he planned to sign papers selling our house with my forged signature, stealing everything we'd built together. 10 minutes later, Detective Hargrove and the officers went inside. I waited in my car, my heart hammering. 20 minutes passed, 30. Finally, the doors opened. Officers led Landon out in handcuffs. His face was red, twisted in shock and anger. He was shouting something I couldn't hear from my car. They put him in the back of a police cruiser. Just like that, 35 years of marriage ended in a parking lot. Detective Hargrove called me an hour later. Landon had been arrested and charged with attempted fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. They'd caught him literally signing the fraudulent papers, with my forged signature already on multiple documents. The real estate attorney had testified to police about Landon's suspicious insistence on rushing the sale. The title company had documentation of irregularities they'd flagged. Combined with my evidence, the case against him was airtight. Landon tried to claim I'd given him permission to sign for me, but the camera footage I'd provided proved I hadn't even been home when he'd conducted his secret meetings. The bail hearing was set for Monday. Gerald, my attorney, explained that I should file for divorce immediately and get a restraining order. I needed to protect myself and our assets before Landon could make bail and try something else. I spent the weekend at Ashby's house again, this time not hiding but taking refuge. Verity drove up and stayed with me. The legal process moved forward quickly. Landon was denied bail because the judge considered him a flight risk, especially given the evidence of offshore account planning. The criminal trial was scheduled for 3 months later. I filed for divorce, citing fraud and irreconcilable differences. Gerald helped me freeze all our joint accounts and secure our assets. During the investigation, detectives uncovered even more. Landon had been having an online relationship with a woman in Costa Rica for over a year. He'd planned to move there after liquidating our assets and divorcing me, leaving me with nothing while he started a new life abroad. The woman claimed she hadn't known he was still married, but messages showed otherwise. She'd encouraged his scheme, telling him he deserved to be happy even if it meant leaving his old life behind. At 62, I was apparently his old life, disposable and inconvenient. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I testified about the security cameras, the secret meetings, the forged signatures. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Landon was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 6 years in federal prison, followed by probation and mandatory restitution. He would have to pay back every dollar he'd attempted to steal, plus damages for the emotional harm he'd caused. Our divorce was finalized while he was awaiting sentencing. I got the house, most of our retirement savings, and a court order that Landon could never contact me again. He's currently serving his sentence at a facility 3 hours away. I haven't visited, and I never will. Ashby and Verity helped me reclaim my home, changing the locks and rearranging furniture until it felt like mine again. Not ours. I'm 62 years old, and I'm starting over. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. I've learned that trust isn't the same as blindness. And love doesn't mean ignoring your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I'm sharing this story because I want other people, especially women my age, to know that it's never too late to protect yourself. Pay attention to changes in behavior. Trust your gut, document everything. Looking back now, I realized the warning signs were there for months before I finally acted. Landon didn't suddenly become a criminal overnight. He gradually built up to it, testing boundaries, creating distance, manipulating situations. The hardest part wasn't discovering his betrayal. It was accepting that the man I'd loved for 35 years was willing to destroy me financially and emotionally for his own benefit. But here's what I want you to understand. You are not defined by someone else's betrayal. You are not foolish for trusting someone you loved. You are not too old to start over, to protect yourself, to demand justice. If you're watching this and something about your own situation feels familiar, please don't ignore it. Talk to someone you trust. Document what you're seeing. Consult a lawyer. Contact the police if necessary. Your safety and security matter more than keeping the peace or avoiding confrontation. I thought I was too old for this kind of drama, too settled in my life for everything to fall apart. But I learned that it's never too late to fight for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helps even one person recognize the signs of financial abuse or elder exploitation, then sharing my pain will have been worth it. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, you deserve better than betrayal, no matter how long you've been with someone. Marlowe's story led to changes in Washington state law regarding spousal financial fraud. Landon remains incarcerated. Marlowe now volunteers with elder abuse prevention programs, helping others recognize warning signs before it's too late. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial exploitation or elder abuse, please contact National Elder Fraud Hotline, 1-833-FRAUD-11 Adult Protective Services in your state local law enforcement. Remember, it's never too late to protect yourself. And now to the lovely viewers of this channel. Got a story? We want to hear it. Your voice matters here, whether it's a personal experience, a revenge moment, a wild betrayal, or just an idea that could make our next story even better. We're listening. Tell us what themes you want more of. What twists keep you hooked? What hit you hardest in this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The best suggestions might become our next viral story. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more amazing and satisfying stories like this.